Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Sir.
Lieutenant, would you state your full name and spell your last name for us?
Good afternoon. My name is Brian Quinn. Last name spelling is Quinn.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Lieutenant Quinn, what do you do for a living?
I'm a police lieutenant with the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
How long have you worked for the Monroe County Sheriff's Office?
25 years.
Did you have any law enforcement jobs before that?
I have.
And where was that?
I served 10 years as a police officer within the state of New Jersey.
Still haven't lost the accent.
I guess not.
What, as a lieutenant in the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, what do you do? What are your specific duties?
Currently, I am the commanding officer of our traffic services unit, and that traffic unit will serve as the main unit for all serious and fatal traffic crash investigations. During my week, I review anywhere between 60 and 100 crash reports authored by sheriff's deputies within the county. We also do salvage vehicle inspections, regular vehicle inspections, and we do talks throughout the county on traffic enforcement.
Prior to your promotion to lieutenant, what was your position within the Sheriff's Office as it pertains to the Traffic Services Division?
I held the rank of sergeant.
So you were head of the Traffic Services Division?
I was.
Have you received any specialized training in regards to traffic services?
I have.
Lieutenant, I'm going to show you what's been marked People's Exhibit 15. Can you just tell us what that is?
Your Honor, I'd like to look at what he's going to be looking at.
Got a copy right there.
I'd like to verify that it's the same.
Go ahead, show it.
Thank you.
Sure. Can you take a look at that for me, Lieutenant, and identify for the court what that is?
This is what we call a CV. Basically, it's a resume of my previous work experience throughout the years working in law enforcement.
And you prepared that document?
I did.
And you provided a copy of it to me at my request?
I did.
And it's a fair and accurate representation of your training and experience in the traffic services accident reconstruction EDR field?
It is.
Okay. People would move to admit that as People's 15, a copy of Lieutenant Quinn's curriculum vitae.
People's 15 is admitted.
Judge, I think we also have on our list of stipulations that Lieutenant Quinn is an expert in EDR imaging and analysis.
Say it again. EDR.
Imaging
Imaging analysis.
and analysis.
Imaging and analysis. Court determines, based on a stipulation, that this witness is an expert in EDR, imaging, and analysis.
Thank you, Judge. So, if you could explain to us, Lieutenant, what EDR imaging and analysis is.
An EDR is also known as an airbag control module, or basically your vehicle's black box. Your vehicle is pretty much recording, even though it is asleep, everything that you're doing once you get into a motor vehicle, if your vehicle is supported. There was federal law passed in 2014 where every vehicle has to have EDR in vehicles. So when you're operating your motor vehicle, the EDR is activated. For example, if a deer jumps out in front of you and you take an invasive maneuver, you're jolting your vehicle back and forth, your EDR pretty much says to itself, something's going on, we have to start to record. Now it's recording everything that you're doing. If everything smooths out after the fact, the EDR goes back to sleep and it would pretty much overwrite itself. But if there's a significant event, that EDR will lock that event. And if you're involved in a traffic crash with airbag deployment, that event will always be locked and will never leave the system. Me as an analyst, there's a difference between analyst and a technician. A technician is one who can, number one, determine if your vehicle is supported by EDR, and if it is, the technician will gather all the cables that are needed to hook into a system called Bosch CDR, and the Bosch CDR will take an image. Basically, it's a picture of that event. It's not a report that's generated, it's just a picture that's put on paper. The analyst, the technician can look at the report, and one thing that he will do, even as an analyst myself, we look for keystrokes to verify that the image we're looking at is from the crash that took place.
Okay, so that's kind of what an EDR does. We heard from Deputy Burkhart before. He is a technician, not an analyst.
Correct.
Okay, so you have specialized training above and beyond what Deputy Burkhart has.
I do.
And that is to look at this image and to be able to interpret it.
Correct. One thing I'm going to look for in a crash event is if there's any braking involved. And now this is something that a technician can't do. As an analyst, if there is braking involved and it's documented on the image, there are mathematical formulas that I can use to determine the actual speed of that vehicle when the event occurred. Now, these formulas will only give you up to 5% or 4% above or below what the EDR report is showing.
Okay. Well, let's start with this. What kind of vehicle was the defendant driving on the date of the crash?
A 2017 Ford.
Was that supported by EDR?
It was.
And Deputy Burkhart was able to download an image of that EDR?
He was.
And you've had an opportunity to take a look at that image and review it?
I have.
You mentioned earlier in your testimony, Lieutenant, keystrokes. As it pertains to EDRs, what does that mean?
This is very important. And again, going back to when I first look at the image, for example, if I have a keystroke of 500, it's going to show me the ignition cycle at the time of the image. And if it says 1,000, well, then we're 500 off. I'm going to know that what I'm looking at regarding that image is not from that crash.
So, I guess clarify that for me. So, because in your example, because the EDR image reflects a keystroke, what does a keystroke mean in layman's terms?
Starting your vehicle.
Okay. So because that EDR image in your example is from keystroke 500, and when you download it, you can see that you're now on keystroke 1000, you know that that EDR image is not in time with the current keystroke, because that was 500 ignition cycles ago.
That's correct.
Okay. Does this EDR report reflect those two components in defendant's vehicle?
It does.
And what does it reflect?
The keystroke, I believe, was 8,195 at the crash, and the keystroke upon this image was 8,196. So we're off by one.
So you know, so does a keystroke occur when one removes the EDR?
Anything can trigger a keystroke. A lot of people, if they get back into their car, they keep trying to start the car. Every time they try to start the car, it records a keystroke. If your battery becomes dead, or if you disconnect from your battery and then you reconnect, it creates a keystroke. Normally, when we see anywhere between 5 and 10 keystrokes off, to me, that's still the same image pertaining to that crash. But for this crash, we're only off by one.
And what does that mean?
It's my opinion that the EDR image in this case is from the crash.
Okay. So you mentioned, Lieutenant, that certain things will cause an EDR to wake up or activate. Can you speak a little bit more about that to the jury? What types of things can cause that?
Again, any type of evasive maneuver as to where if you're not traveling in a straight line or negotiating a curve at a basic speed, if you jolt your vehicle, it can cause the EDR to wake up. If you're involved in a car-deer crash, it will cause the EDR to awake. If you're involved in a significant event, it's definitely going to cause the EDR to awake and start to record. But again, if your vehicle has airbag deployment, that EDR image will be there and you can never really remove it.
In that type of circumstance, Lieutenant, would you say the EDR image is locked within the system?
That's correct.
So talk about a little bit for the jury. What types of things does a EDR record?
A lot of information.
Well,
So basically, it can record whether or not you're wearing your seatbelt as the operator. It will record if your passengers are belted. It will record every time you hit your brake pedal. It's going to record percentage of throttle. It will record your speed. It will record what's called a delta V, which is a change in velocity. It will record if your headlights are on or off at the time. Just a lot of information on the report itself.
so you had an opportunity to analyze the EDR image from this vehicle from this crash. Is that correct?
I have.
And did this EDR record an event?
It did.
Did it record more than one?
It did.
How many did it record?
2.
From that same ignition cycle?
Yes.
So, referring to, you've had an opportunity to review the report,
I have.
and do you have a copy with you today
I do.
to refresh your recollection?
Yes.
So, does the EDR record the speed of a vehicle?
It does.
Does it record the percentage of acceleration? In other words, the percentage of the accelerator pedal?
It does.
Does it record braking?
It does.
Does it record what gear it's in?
It does.
Okay. So you said there were 2 events for this ignition cycle.
Yes.
If I could ask you about the first event, what does the EDR show for that event as far as gear?
It shows reverse.
Okay. Does it show, well, the EDR, how far back does the recording go prior to an event?
Everyone can be different. Usually there are 5 seconds pre-impact.
Okay. Is that in fact what this particular EDR recorded, 5 seconds prior to event?
I believe so, yes.
And for all those types of things we just talked about, braking, and accelerator pedal percentage and speed.
It does.
And it'll tell you the speed right up to the time of the crash?
Yes.
Okay. Lieutenant, could you tell me, as to the first event, what the speed at the time of the crash was?
I would have to look back at the report.
You need it to review or refresh your recollection.
Yes. At the point of impact, it was 13.8 miles per hour,
Okay. And what was the accelerator pedal percentage?
100%.
So, aside from just, I don't want to say just, but aside from analyzing this report, you're familiar with the full scope of this investigation, is that correct?
I am.
And you're familiar with the video evidence and investigation by other deputies, is that right?
I am.
That crash that's recorded by the EDR, can you equate to the jury what real-life event that memorialized?
Looking at the image itself, the operator of the vehicle for the first event had the vehicle in reverse and went into like a U-shaped motion and then crashed into another motor vehicle. But that first crash, there was no airbag deployment. But it created such an event that the EDR recorded it. And then shortly thereafter, there was another event.
Okay. So, in the context of all the other information you know about this case, what crash is that EDR event referring to?
The very first EDR image?
Yes.
It's referring to the very first crash, motor vehicle versus motor vehicle.
Okay. And Lieutenant Quinn, I'll refer you to the table for the second event. You have that?
I do.
In that event, well, first of all, the EDR recorded it,
It did.
and it recorded back 5 seconds from the time of the crash. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in reviewing the entirety of the EDR image and the investigation, what crash does this reflect?
This image reflects the vehicle striking the building.
Okay. Can you tell at the time of the crash whether or not the braking system was engaged?
Yes.
Was it?
No.
Can you tell at the time of the crash what the accelerator pedal percentage was?
96.6.
What does that mean to you in terms of real life, in terms of what someone's doing in a vehicle?
The pedals to the floor.
And can you tell me, Lieutenant, 5 seconds prior to the crash, what was the vehicle's speed?
29.5 miles per hour.
How about at 4 seconds prior?
30.3 miles per hour.
3 seconds prior?
30.7 miles per hour.
2 seconds prior?
32.9 miles per hour.
1 second prior?
37.8 miles per hour.
And at the time of impact, 0.0 seconds.
44.3 miles per hour.
No further questions, Judge.
Sir, does it matter if the vehicle is a two-wheel vehicle or a four-wheel vehicle?
It does not.
And so you're putting that, you weren't there when this crash, of course, occurred, correct?
That's correct.
So you're relying on a mechanical device, correct? You're relying on a device, not a human being, right?
That's correct.
Okay. And you're saying it was approximately 40 miles an hour or thereabouts, correct? At the time of impact of the building?
I can only tell you what the 2017 Ford, that airbag module reported as in the image at 44 miles per hour.
And I'm sorry, how fast?
I'm sorry, 44.3 miles per hour.
And would that occur to reach that speed about 400 feet away from that speed you just mentioned in airbag deployment? Would that be, to reach that speed at 450 feet away, you'd have to pretty much put the pedal down to the metal, so to speak. Am I right? In other words, you wouldn't be driving 5 or 10 miles an hour and slowly drive. Those many seconds for 450 feet. You got the pedal, especially in gravel, to the floor. Would you agree? Or close to the floor?
I would say 50% to the floor.
And I don't have any questions.
Any follow-up? Briefly. Just on that issue, Lieutenant, just looking at the same graph that's presently, if we could go back to it. Just looking at the accelerator pedal percentage, going from 5 seconds to 0.0 seconds. Is it consistent or consistently rising, or does it fluctuate?
For the second event?
Yes, sir.
Yes, it's rising.
Well, so the third part on the second event, on page 27, how does the accelerator pedal percentage start at 5 seconds?
As if she's not pressing on the gas at all.
Okay, and then what does it go to at 4.5 seconds?
59.3%.
And at 4 seconds?
0 again.
And at 3.5 and 3 seconds?
80.1%.
And at 3 seconds?
82%.
And then at 2.5?
0 once again.
And then at 2?
100%.
So it's not consistently held to the floor?
No, it's not.
Okay, no further questions.
Just one question, Your Honor, if I have. Thank you. Would it be consistent with somebody initially putting the pedal to the floor, for lack of a better way of saying it, and then ease up, and then pedal to the floor again? Is that how it looks? Or does it look like somebody put it to the floor and then just eased up and cruised into the building?
No, just from reading the image itself, and again, at 5%, there's no percentage. So her foot wasn't even really giving it any pressure at all. But as we continue, obviously, you could see by the image that she is pressing on the gas. She releases the gas, and then she gets on it once again. So it's back and forth.
So it's almost like there's a seizure, a relaxed, and also a seizure again of the foot, whether it's intentional or not. Do you agree with that?
Objection. I think that question is highly suggestive.
Well, I'll withdraw it, but
Okay.
I think the jury can.
All right, may this witness be excused.
Yes, Judge.
Thank you. Thank you.
Next witness.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, people call Diane Medina.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Watch your step. Make sure the chair doesn't fall off.
Ms. Medina, would you state your name and then spell your last name for us?
Diane Medina, Medina.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Ms. Medina. Thank you for being here today. If I ask you to repeat something, just lean in a little bit to the microphone, okay? Ms. Medina, are you familiar with the Swan Boat Club?
Yes, I am.
How are you familiar with that?
I am a member of Swan Boat Club.
And how long have you been a member of Swan Boat Club?
10 years.
Are you currently a member of Swan
I
Boat?
am.
Were you present at the Swan Boat Club on April 20th of 2024?
I was.
Why were you there that day?
I was there for a child's birthday party.
Did you know the child?
Not directly. I've met him maybe once or twice. Friends with the mother.
And who is his mother?
Kristen Sigler, Tweety.
Do you know what time you arrived to the party on that day?
I do. I got there about 10 minutes to 1.
And can you describe the party when you first arrived through the next hour or so?
It was beautiful. It was, I get choked up thinking about it. It was any kid's dream birthday party. It was just magical.
At some point, did something cause the party to come to an end?
It did.
What happened?
A car came through the wall.
Where were you sitting, if you can recall, when the car came through the wall?
My back, I was sitting at a table with my back to the wall where the car entered.
Do you have any memory of the crash?
I do.
What do you recall?
I remember hearing like a loud explosion, a bunch of like dust or debris going from the sides of my face. I remember being pushed, and I remember everything went silent for a split second. And I remember saying, "Don't step on me, don't step on me," because there was a bunch of stuff on top of me. I found out later they were tables. People were pulling the tables off me.
You mentioned a moment ago that it all went silent. Did you lose consciousness that day?
I don't know that I did. I do know that I ended up with a concussion, but I don't know if it was like a moment stopped for me in my head, but it was like silent and then chaos.
Ms. Medina, I know that this is going to be hard, but can you describe the chaos that you just referred to?
I just remember people screaming. I could hear people running around.
I'm sorry, Ms. Medina, we're going to wait. Thank you very much. Ms. Medina, did you incur any injuries as a result of this incident on April 20th of 2024?
I did.
Can you just briefly list for the jury some of the injuries that you incurred?
My pelvis was broken in 6 places. I had a screw that's 6.5 inches long going through my pelvis. I had internal bleeding. I had to have surgery to stop the bleeding. I had to have a blood transfusion. A concussion, like I said. My nose was crushed. I've had 2 surgeries on my nose. I had a hematoma the size of a baseball on my arm. My tibia was fractured. I found that out later once I started walking. I think that's all I can remember.
Okay. And I know you mentioned a loss of consciousness or something. You weren't sure if that was the case. Did you ultimately get diagnosed with a closed head injury?
I did.
Okay. And I don't know how much you can elaborate on that, but just based off of your medical treatment, what, if any, treatment have you sought regarding that closed head injury?
I had to go to speech therapy.
Have you had any memory loss?
I did. I had a little bit of memory loss, but it was during conversations, I would lose my train of thought in the middle of a conversation, and I had to find my words.
On the day of April 20th, 24, do you recall if you were taken to the hospital?
I was.
Okay, what hospital were you initially taken to?
Originally, I was taken to Monroe.
And did you stay at Monroe?
I did not.
Where did you go, if you recall?
I was taken by ambulance to Toledo because it was a trauma hospital.
Do you know how long you were in the hospital for?
I was in the hospital for a total of 17 days, 10 in Toledo and 7 in a rehab facility.
And so from Toledo, were you discharged to that rehab facility?
By ambulance, yes.
Now, Ms. Medina, you went through a list of the injuries that you incurred. As you sit here today, what injuries are you currently still dealing with?
I just recently had, I believe it's called an EMG, and I had 2 tests done on my nerve because I'm having nerve pain in my right leg. We're not sure if it's caused from the accident nerve damage or from the screw that's going through my pelvis.
Obviously, we watched you walk in here today. You're able to walk?
I am able to walk, but it does hurt to walk. Every step hurts.
Was there a period of time where you were not able to be mobile?
Yes, for 3 months.
Do you have trouble, I know you said every step hurts, do you have trouble sitting for long periods of time?
I have to, not, I do, but you kind of, shift, yes.
This might sound like a silly question, but prior to the crash, did you suffer from any of these injuries?
No, I did not.
Did it hurt to walk prior to this crash?
No, it did not.
Are you in any pain at the moment?
Right now, no.
Do you take any pain medication daily?
I do not.
Okay. At the time of the crash, so April 20th of 2024, were you employed?
Yes.
How were you employed?
I was quality control for Hollingsworth.
And are you currently employed in that same position?
I am.
Did you have to take any time off of work?
Yes, I went back to work September 6th.
Okay. So approximately, if you can tell me how long
4 months?
4 months?
I think, I don't know, from April 20th to September 6th.
Okay, that's okay. An approximation is totally fine. And if any, what kind of therapies are you currently still treating with?
I am not doing any therapy. Therapy was bothering my nerve in my leg, so we stopped until we figure out what's going on with that.
Ms. Benino, thank you for being here today. Those are all the questions that I have for you right now.
Thank you.
Cross.
No call,
All right, thank you. You may sit down.
Thank you.
Next witness.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, the people would call Leah Stiff.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ma'am, bring this one. Why don't you stop? Make sure that chair doesn't roll off. Okay, I got you.
Miss, would you state your full name and spell your last name for us?
That is going to be Leah Stith, and that's spelled Stith.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Leah. Thank you for being here today. If I tell you to say something again, it's just because the microphone needs to pick you up. Okay? I know you speak softly. Leah, are you familiar with the Swan Boat Club?
Absolutely.
How are you familiar with the Swan Boat Club?
Me and my family have been going to that boat club for about 9 to 10 years.
Were you present at the boat club on the date of April 20th, 2024?
Yes.
And what brought you to the boat club that day?
It was my little cousin's 2nd birthday.
So you knew the birthday boy?
Yeah.
And that was your cousin?
Yeah, definitely.
Do you know what time you arrived to the party that day?
I want to say around 1:30. I'm not completely sure.
And can you describe the party? What it looked like when you arrived?
If anybody knows Tweety, they know she can throw a little kid's birthday party. It was beautiful. There was just circus decorations everywhere. Everyone was having a good time.
At some point, did something happen that caused the party to end?
Yes.
What happened?
From what I remember, there was just debris flying everywhere, and it seemed like an explosion had gone off, and that's what I just assumed because of how much havoc was going on. But when I had woken up, I couldn't physically move, so I just heard everything around me.
Do you remember if you lost consciousness?
Yes, I did.
At some point, did you come to realize whether it was an explosion that caused the party to stop?
Once I was able to move, I could only move my leg and my neck. It was probably just shock. But once I could move my neck, I looked over and saw the car through the building.
Yeah, I know you mentioned that you lost consciousness. Did you have any other injuries as a result of this crash?
Yes, I had 3 broken ribs, a punctured lung, a broken sternum, a giant hematoma on my head, as well as a concussion, and severe PTSD.
On the date of April 20th, 2024, do you remember if you were taken to the hospital?
Yes, I was.
Okay, do you remember what hospital you were taken to?
That was, they may have renamed it now, but Trent Beaumont at the time.
And did you have a stay at the hospital?
Yes.
How long were you there for, if you can recall?
About 3 days. I want to say 2 nights, 3 days.
And I know you went through a list of injuries, but how are your injuries as you sit here today?
Physically, I am doing okay. I still have random aches and things along those lines, and I am in the gym all the time, so I feel like not secure doing certain movements just in case something's not right in my body, which that's an everyday thing for me. Mentally, that's a whole nother story. I don't drive myself places very often now. I'm very afraid of getting in cars, especially when others are driving. My anxiety has definitely gotten a little worse because of what had happened. It causes random outbursts of it. Going along with the PTSD, anytime I'm in a car, I have like slight panic attacks. But besides that, there were no lasting injuries besides mental.
Were you employed as of April 20th, 2024?
Yes, I was.
And where were you employed?
I was employed at the Taylor Ford dealership.
Okay. And I know you've since moved out of state since then, but as a
Yeah.
result of this incident, were you off of work for any period of time?
I was off of work for a few months, and then I started doing part-time. It got a little overwhelming because I was working with cars constantly. And considering every time I'm in a vehicle, I get severe anxiety, I just try to avoid driving, but I recently decided to get a new job, try and forget what had happened.
Prior to the incident, do you know how much you were working at Taylor Ford? How many hours a week?
50 plus?
And then after this incident, you said you went down part-time?
Yeah, and I was doing maybe 15, 20 hours a week.
And Leah, how old were you at the time that this accident occurred?
I was 18.
Thank you for being here. That's all I have for you right now.
Cross-exam? All right, thank you. You may step down. Next witness.
Judge, people call Mariah Dodds.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you are about to give in this matter before the court shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Ma'am?
Miss, would you state your full name and spell your last name for us?
Mariah Dodds, D-O-D-D-S.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Miss Dodds, you're the mother of Zayn, Alanah, and Jaden Phillips.
Yes. Yes.
Where were you headed on April 20th of last year?
I was headed to a birthday party
Where was the birthday party being held?
at the Swan Boat Club
Have you been to the Swan Boat Club before?
just the night before to help decorate.
Okay. What garnered you an invitation? Why were you invited?
I'm the little boy's godmother.
And that was because of your relationship with Kristen Sigler at the time?
Yes.
Do you know what time you arrived at the birthday party?
It was approximately at 2:08 p.m.
And did you come alone, or who attended with you?
No, I had my mother, my 3 children, Jaden, Alanah, Zayn, and my nephew, Edward Smothers.
Once you got to the party, what did you do?
When we got there, we just explored what was all set up. There's multiple tables and games, a bounce house in the backyard, and the kids just roamed around and had fun.
At some point, did you tell the kids it was time to eat?
Yes.
And you didn't arrive till 2:05, so do you know roughly what time it was that you said it was time for lunch?
It was close by 2:50 p.m. because it was right after Happy Birthday was sang.
Okay. What is the last thing you can remember from the birthday party?
After they sang Happy Birthday, my kids got their food, they were eating, and eventually when they were done, within a few minutes, they ate pretty fast. We were going to go outside back in the backyard to go on the jump houses, but I placed a cake pop in front of Zayn and Alanah so that way they would be able to get one before they all ran out. And that was the last thing I remember.
So you don't remember the crash at all?
No.
After the crash, what's the first thing you remember?
Waking up in the hospital.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of the boat club after the crash at all?
No, just I remember trying to open my eyes and it was black, like I was asleep or something, and I heard like long distance voices. And it was just a few things that I heard, and then that was it. And then I woke up in the hospital.
You don't remember an ambulance ride or anything like that?
No.
The first time you woke up in the hospital, what was your condition?
I was choking on the tube that was in my throat.
You had a intubation, a breathing tube down your
A
throat?
ventilator. And then I was asleep, and then I woke up again.
When you woke up and you were able to assess yourself, what did you realize had happened to you?
Well, when I opened my eyes, I seen I was in a hospital room. And at that point, I didn't have the ventilator down my throat, and my wrists were free. They weren't strapped down. And I heard my sister next to me crying. I asked her, why am I here? And she said there's been an accident. And it occurred to my brain that how I was in a building the last time I remember at a birthday party. And then I freaked out because it hit me, where's my kids at? And then that's when she told me that Jaden was... life flew to a hospital, and Zayn and Alanah were no longer there.
And you're in the hospital.
Yes.
Do you know what position you were in at that time physically?
When she told me, I started to freak out. I went to jump up, but I couldn't. I was hooked up to so many wires and machines, and at that time I didn't feel no physical pain because of all the medication they were pumping through me.
Did they put you back to sleep again? Do you know?
Yeah.
At that time?
Yeah, it's like I tried to scream, and then everything was black again.
At some point when you had an opportunity to gather yourself, were you able to learn what injuries you had suffered?
Yes.
What were those, Mariah?
I had a punctured lung, broken ribs, a broken shoulder blade, a hematoma on my pelvic. My chin was busted open. My lip was busted open. I had mouth injuries resulting in losing a tooth and nerve damage throughout my face because of my teeth.
Do you know, by the time you were able to wake up and comprehend all this, how long you had been in the hospital under sedation?
No, just of what my family told me.
It was days, though?
I didn't wake up till the next day after the accident. and I got released from the hospital 4 days after the accident.
When you went home, were you able to walk and move freely?
No.
What kind of impediments did you have when you went home?
I had to use a walker if I did get up. It was very hard to move around. I couldn't get into a vehicle for probably a month, and if I did, it was hard. It hurt severely. I couldn't sit straight up. I couldn't lay down, flat down, and it was just rough. I just sat there basically until I healed, until I made progress to move around. And I had physical therapy come to my home to work with me, and then that was helping, and then they sent me to outpatient therapy, and that it helped extremely.
And how long did that all take?
A couple months.
You said that you learned that your son Jaden had been life flighted to a different hospital.
Yes.
How long was Jaden in the hospital?
2 weeks.
Okay. When he came home, he eventually came home to your house?
Yes.
Were you able to care for him?
No.
At the time, how old was Jaden?
He was 11.
Okay. He's 12 now.
Yes.
Did Jaden receive any home care? I know you mentioned physical therapy for yourself.
Yes, he had physical therapy, occupational therapy, and then a regular nurse coming to the home.
Okay. Do you know what injuries he sustained?
Yes.
What happened to Jaden?
He had multiple broken bones that consisted of his wrist, his fingers. He had a broken pelvis, his legs. He had a big gash in the back of his head. He also had a punctured lung, broken ribs, and a concussion.
Did he have to have surgery?
Yes.
Do you know what part of his body he had to have surgery on?
His femur, his legs.
Okay. How long, well, first I'll ask this way. Jaden's not going to come testify today.
No.
Is Jaden able to walk and get around today?
Yes.
How long did it take for him to be able to do that?
Many months. I can't even give an exact time frame.
Mariah, you were able to bring a photo of Zayn and a photo of Alanah for the jury to see today. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Mariah, are those your children?
Yes.
Okay. No further questions, Judge.
Cross.
One vote. Very sorry. I'm sorry for your loss. I lost my son in September. He died peacefully at home. He was older. And every time I work on your case, I think you go. And I think of your children. And you have my deepest sympathy. And I'm human. I might be a defense attorney, but I'm human. And you seem like a much stronger person than me.
It's hard.
My prayers are with you and your family. I wish you the best. People keep telling me God has a plan. I guess that's what we got to do. So I just wanted to come out with you for a minute and tell you true heartfelt that I feel very bad for you and your family. It's a club you don't want to belong to. And I don't have any questions for you. You've gone through enough in life. But
Judge, I still appreciate
I'm
Mr.
done.
Clovis'
I'm done.
sentiment.
Okay, thank you very much.
May she be excused? Yes. Thank you. Which means you're able to stay if you wish. Hey, Bill, would you come up for a second, please? Just give me both of those. We'll get them out of the camera shot. I saw her. Yep. All right. Thank you.
Detective Josh Motley, Your Honor.
truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Your Honor, can we approach very briefly? Yes. Just be careful on the slide. Yes, sir. Lost him.
For me, spell your last name, please.
Joshua Motylinski. It's Motylinski.
Thank you, Judge. How are you employed, Mr. Motylinski?
I'm employed by the Monroe County Sheriff's Office.
And how long have you been employed there?
I have been employed there for 13 years.
Do you have other law enforcement experience prior to that?
No.
And do you hold all of the trainings, education, certification necessary to be a peace officer in the state of Michigan?
Yes.
Were those up to date on April 20th of 2024?
Yes.
Were you working on April 20th of 2024?
I was not.
You were employed by the Sheriff's Department, though?
Yes.
And what was your assignment or role at that time?
I am a detective. On that particular day, I was on call status.
How long have you been a detective?
At that time, I was a detective for about 2.5 years.
Were you involved in the investigation at Swan Boat Club on April 20th, 2024 and subsequently?
Yes.
What was your role?
I received a phone call from my supervisor, Detective Sergeant Hooper. He called me to inform me of the incident and asked me to respond to the scene.
And ultimately was a determination made of what officer would lead that investigation?
Yes.
Who was that?
That would be me.
And so you were off that day, you said?
Correct.
Were you at home?
I was.
And so how did you get to the Swan Boat Club?
I got dressed in my uniform, and then I proceeded to get in my patrol car, and I drove to the Swan Boat Club.
Where is the Swan Boat Club located?
It's in Newport, Michigan, off of Branch Hart Road.
Is that Berlin Township?
Yes.
County Monroe?
Yes.
State of Michigan?
Yes.
All right. What did you observe when you arrived at the Swan Boat Club?
When I arrived, there were many medical personnel and police agencies on scene. When I got there, I parked my patrol vehicle and I made contact with the supervisor of the road, Sergeant Bomia. I also made contact with Detective Martin, who had arrived just prior to my arrival.
Do you know approximately what time you would have arrived?
I arrived at approximately 4:30 p.m.
Was the defendant still there?
No.
During the investigation you conducted, were you able to determine approximately how many victims in total there were?
Total victims, there were approximately 12. Serious injuries, through my investigation, there was 5.
And you entered the Swan Boat Club, I assume, on that day?
Eventually, yes.
Okay. And what did you see inside?
Total disarray of what appeared to be a child's birthday party. There was tables, chairs thrown everywhere, food. It was just total destruction.
Did you see any remnants of alcohol at this party?
Not to my knowledge, no.
Any empty beer cans?
No, I didn't see
Empty
any.
beer bottles? Empty kegs or kegs in use?
No.
Detective, what is a medical examiner investigation?
A medical examiner investigation is a investigation done by a detective or a deputy that is trained through Dr. Carl Schmidt, who is our chief medical examiner for Monroe County. It's an investigation done by one of those people trained to help the coroner. Basically, it gives them a understanding of what happened at the scene. So it's a report prepared by a medical examiner that shows what the scene was. We take photographs, and then that report is turned over to the coroner or the medical examiner for autopsy purposes.
Is that because there's not a coroner on scene?
Correct.
So it explains to the coroner what occurred on the scene?
Correct.
And did you conduct a medical examiner investigation in this matter?
I did. I conducted 2 that day.
You did 2. One for Zayn, one for Alanah?
Correct.
And what were the nature of your findings? Where was Zayn Phillips located in relationship to the crash?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Where was Zayn Phillips located after the crash?
When I arrived on scene, Zayn was in the back of the ambulance in the parking lot of the Swan Boat Club.
But as part of your investigation, were you able to determine where he was prior to that?
Yes. Through my investigation, after the vehicle impacted the building, I was determined that Zayn was under the front driver's side tire. Some civilians at the party had lifted the vehicle and removed Zayn, at which point another civilian took Zayn outside and laid him in the grass right near where the hole in the side of the building was, and at which point they waited for medical personnel to arrive.
Was he pronounced dead at the scene?
He was.
And what about Alanah Phillips? Where was she located?
Alanah was located wedged between the door between the breezeway and the pavilion party area and the front passenger side of the vehicle.
And was she also deceased at the scene?
Yes.
Judge, I have what I marked as People's Proposed Exhibits 23 and 24. These are the MEI reports for Alanah and Zayn. I think these are stipulated too, but I'll move to admit those.
People's 23 and 24 are admitted by stipulation.
And similarly, Judge, Exhibits 26 and 28, I believe are stipulated too. These are the ME reports. I would move to... Okay, move
26 and 28, People's 26 and 28 are admitted by stipulation.
Executive, I'm going to hand you Exhibit 26. Just take a look at that. Can you tell me what that is?
This is a case summary on the death of Alanah Grace Phillips.
And can you please proffer to the jury the cause and manner of death for Alanah?
The cause of death is multiple blunt force injuries, and then in parentheses it says instantaneous. The manner of death is accident.
And I'll hand you his mark as Exhibit 28. Can you tell me what that is?
This is a case summary on the death of Zayn Isaac Phillips.
And can you tell me the cause and manner of death for Zayn Isaac Phillips, please?
The cause of death is multiple blunt force trauma, and then in parentheses it says seconds-minutes, and the manner of death is accident.
Thank you, Detective. And Detective, as your role as the lead investigator on this matter, were you able to obtain medical records for Mariah Dodds, Diane Medina, Leah Stith, Jaden Phillips, and Edward Smothers?
Yes.
And Judge, I believe these are stipulated too as well, but for purpose of the record, I move to admit Exhibit 34, medical records for Edward Smothers, Exhibit 33, medical records for Diane Medina, Exhibit 32 is medical records for Jaden Phillips, Exhibit 31 is medical records for Leah Stith, Exhibit 30 is more medical records for Miss Medina, and Exhibit 29 is medical records for Maria Dodds.
Okay. All of those exhibits are admitted by stipulation.
Thank you, Judge. Judge, I have no further questions for this witness.
Cross. Thank you, Judge.
When you were investigating this case generally, right? There wasn't just one section that you investigated.
I investigated it as well as multiple other detectives with the department.
But there were multiple areas that you investigated, right?
Correct.
Okay. Did you have a chance to go execute a search warrant at Furnace?
I did.
Okay. And how did you come about for information to even think of Furnace?
The information was relayed to me through the other deputies' prior investigation before I got there, that she had been to Furnace.
Suppose in a nutshell, I say, what was it based on, an affidavit, or what facts that made you think of Furnace and not somebody else's place?
I believe the defendant told one of the other deputies that she had been to Furnace.
And I apologize, you have to speak up a little bit more.
From the other deputies' investigations, she advised one of the deputies that she had been to Furnace prior to the incident.
For lunch?
Yes.
Okay. And that would have been about what time, do you recall? You based your search warrant on about what time?
Noon.
Okay. And so did you and or other deputies go out to Verna's and sort of close out the area sort of as a crime scene?
Other deputies did.
Okay. And would that be like with yellow tape or something, or just, it's private, don't come in?
When I got there, there was no yellow tape. It was just don't come in right now.
Okay, all right. And the search warrant in your investigation, you participated that at Verna's bar or whatever it's called?
Correct.
Okay. And did you talk to somebody there? Is there like a Kelly Thornton or somebody?
I did not. Detective Sergeant Hooper was with me, who talked to the owner of Verna's.
And did your subpoena, were you able to get copies of any receipts that would have been in my client's name?
Through a search warrant, I got a receipt.
Okay. And what did that receipt show?
The receipt indicated that she had purchased some food and 1 glass of wine.
1 glass of wine and some food?
Correct.
Okay. And did you get a chance to talk to anybody that waited on her, served her, such as Kelly Thornton?
I did not.
Would have Detective Hooper, do you think he did, or don't you know?
I'm not sure if it was Detective Hooper or another deputy that was already on scene.
Did you have any other proof that my client drank anything else while on the premises?
At that time, during the search warrant?
During the search warrant?
No.
Okay. And were you aware that when my client was initially interviewed at the crash scene, that she told one of the investigative officers that she had 1 glass of wine at lunchtime?
Yes.
And with Verna's, does that line up with what my client told the officer? With what happened at Verna's, 1 glass of wine? We're talking about Verna's 1 glass of wine.
Right.
Does that line up with, she said 1 glass of wine at Verna's?
While I was at the scene?
Correct. Let me back up. My client stated at the crash scene during the investigation, you've come to learn, that she said she had 1 glass of wine at Verna's at lunchtime with friends, correct?
Correct.
And then when you executed the search warrant, unannounced search warrant, you pulled up a receipt from either a charge or a debit of my client's, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and it showed 1 glass of wine, correct?
Correct.
And it showed some chili or fish sandwich or something like that, right?
Correct.
All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions.
Will you redirect? No. You missed it.
Thank you.
Hey there, thanks for stopping in. We hope you will join us again. We all look forward to next time. We get to talk about true crime.